You needed some sandpaper, and so do I. So today, in this video, we're going to be talking about Ekastorm and Filmtek. So we get asked, quite often at Paint Life Supply Co., what's the difference between the two? It does come in the kit, both of them. Ekastorm is yellow, Filmtek is blue. So we've got Sherry. She is the master at hand sanding. Can you talk to us a little bit about, what these two are and when maybe I would use either or?
The Ekastorm is a paper abrasive. It's also got a rolled on stearate, so it prevents it from loading, right? But once the stearate's gone, then you no longer have that protection. With Filmtek, it's a plastic film abrasive, right? And it doesn't tear. It also has the stearate in the resins. So when you're sanding, it continues to dissipate the dust away from it. The nice thing about film is that if I get in the corner, right, and I bump in, I can actually get all the way to the corner because it won't lose grain on the corner and it won't tear, where paper will actually tear and you'll start to see the grain shed.
Right. So I know, I've talked about it a while, back, and some people ask me, I've always said that Ekastorm, which is the yellow, which is the paper, it actually cuts better. Now, am I wrong or am I right?
No, you're actually right. The Ekastorm is a little bit more aggressive. The initial cut rate and when you first start sanding is very aggressive and it goes really fast, especially in the coarser grits. When you get a little bit finer grits, it starts to slow down and gets a little bit more even. But in the coarser grits, in your 120s, 80s, 120s, even the 150, you get a very advanced cut with the Ekastorm. I like the Ekastorm in the heavier grits. I do. It's a very good product.
So, because I used to tell people, and I still do, but I want to make sure I get this right. If you're stripping a finish, so if I've got this door right here and I want to strip the finish off, even down to maybe bare wood, maybe Ekastorm be better than Filmtek for that?
It's a little bit cheaper.
Right.
And it's a little bit better cut. And so because we have a tendency to not use a disc all the way to the end, especially when we're stripping stuff down, once it stops cutting, we're ripping it off looking for the next one. So the Ekastorm gives you a better economical option, and it also gives you a little bit better cut rate. So it's going to initially take off more product than what the Filmtek will initially.
Yeah. I know and you brought it up, there is a cost difference, but to me the cost difference is not that much of a cost difference. I know Filmtek all around performs very well for me, yes, all around. So when it comes to the Filmtek, typically on an average size job, I'm only going through about 5 of these anyway. So we're talking just pennies, and I don't like to make it too complicated and have too many abrasives, in my arsenal. So is that wrong or am I right by doing that?
No, and I think that, with Filmtek, because it is film, it's flatter, and when you're refinishing a job and you're not going into those aggressive, you're not stripping it down, you're not going into those aggressive grits, the Filmtek is great. And like you said, the pricing is not that different. Filmtek has been fabulous for us because it is a film back abrasive at a paper price. And that's been a great advantage for us. Now, if you're actually going to have to strip the wood back, I think that you're going to get a little bit more cut out of that.
Right.
And you'll get, a little bit longer life. Right?
And I want to touch on this just really quickly too, because when I first got into using abrasives 5 years ago, it really just kind of revolutionized and changed how I did things in cabinet painting. A lot of the terminology was new to me and just right over my head. And I started hearing the word stearation. I'm like, what the heck is that? You brought that up. And can you just touch on, you kind of touched on it, this, if you look at it, it's yellow, and if we look at it really closely on the camera, it's yellow and gray. And what is stearation, and what does it actually do?
Stearation is added into the abrasive, right? And you can do it in multiple different ways. One way is to do what we do here with Filmtek, is to apply the stearation into the resin and then apply it to the abrasive, and then when it's sprayed on. With this one, this is called a rolled on stearate. So it's actually, the stearate is on a roller and it's actually coated on after the abrasive, but before the resins and stuff. So it's actually on there with the resins, but it wears off much quicker because it's applied after the resin. So.
And so one of the things I learned was that why Unida's abrasives are so much more effective, sometimes cost a little bit more than what you can buy at your local hardware store, is the process that goes to manufacturing this abrasive. And typically you're not going to see stearation in a lot of these lower end abrasives, and so they're not going to be as effective. They're going to load up a lot more. And is that kind of correct?
It is, and it isn't. It's cheaper to do a rolled on stearate than it is to do a stearate in the resins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you see a product with a rolled on stearate, it's usually on the lower end, and depending on the grain, abrasives is an evolving thing. And when I talk to people about abrasives and the different grains and why we use this or why we use that, that's kind of the stearation goes into that. And even though this is a rolled on stearate and it's a less expensive product, it's still a really good product because we use a premium grain at Ekastorm. So that's a very huge point, when you're looking at abrasives, is to make sure that where you're getting it from, what kind of stearation, and what you want to do with your substrate.
Right. So I think it's pretty important if you're looking for that ultra-fine finish, the factory finish, to use the right abrasive. Definitely find abrasive that's going to be a stearated abrasive. Sometimes it looks like it's like kind of a malted color. Sometimes it's in the resin.